Me?
Yeah.
I'm not even making any, I don't know. I'll mute myself.
Okay.
We are recording now. Sorry about that.
Oh, we are good?
Just got it started. Yep.
Okay. All right. So I thought I did a training the beginning of last week for Ellington Voices team. And one of the things that we talked about during that training was teachable moments. And I think sometimes as leaders, that's something we kind of lose sight of. So I thought today we'd talk about, are you a teachable leader? And what can you do to help your learnings, help your team? So I don't know how many of you have ever studied or read any of John Maxwell's work, but yeah, good. I'm glad to see heads shaking. I love John Maxwell. I think he is one of the most well-spoken presenters on leadership that I've ever come in contact with. And I read a lot of his books and I listen to his CDs and I take a lot of his trainings. Matter of fact, I'm going down to Atlanta at the beginning of October to do never mind. I'm going down to do a training. I can't think of. Oh, I need more caffeine, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I think John Maxwell has a book out called Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn. And I think that's really, really true. I remember growing up, my mom and dad would always say, are you going to learn it right the first time? Or are you going to learn it right the Miller way, which was my maiden name? And basically what they were asking was, is this going to have to happen to you more than once before you figure it out, or, learn your lesson the hard way? So, while I've always known that learning from failures is the best way to not repeat them, in John Maxwell's book, he really helped me reaffirm and create a plan around making sure that I learn from every experience, whether it's good or bad. I mean, often we kind of chalk up failures and we say, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. I mean, how many of you have actually said that? Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, right? We all say it. But John Maxwell has an interesting perspective. He says that when you say sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, you're really saying, I hope to win, I expect to lose, and I'll live with the results either way. So in trying to think like a winner, you have to recognize that that's not what a winner would think. A winner would not think sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. When you're learning and growing, you're successful, and successful people don't brush failure under the rug. They learn from it. So we all need to learn from our success and hopefully repeat them and not the lessons that you're trying to learn the Miller way like I had to growing up. So I know last year at National Conference, they introduced the power plan model. And that was an opportunity for you to kind of look at a whole month based in weeks, and then identify what you needed to train to in each of those weeks. And born out of that particular training at conference last year is why I gather my leaders, and I've invited all of you to join us every Monday at 11 Eastern time, because we really dig into what we need to be focusing on that week. And I think as a leader, sometimes too, we get in our office on a Monday and there's so many things that we need to do, and we tend to do the easiest things first, and they are generally not very income producing. We'd rather just move paper, create graphics, the things that are fun and not necessarily things that are going to produce income for us. So I would strongly urge you to go back and look at, okay, someone has not muted themselves, because I'm hearing a lot of noise, and that's really distracting when you're trying to listen to a recording. So if you've not muted yourself, if you could, that would be greatly helpful. So when you're using that power plan, it not only helps you plan your month, but it also gives you a written record of what you did. Like, how many times have you actually thought, I wish I remember what last August was like, or what was I focused on this week last August? And by having these power plan sheets and keeping them, whether electronically or copy, it gives you an idea of what you did last year and what your focuses should be this year. But those power plans also help you focus on your consultant activity, but also helps you plan for your leader activities too. We all know what we need to do as a consultant, but sometimes we don't know what we need to do as a leader. So when you have those hard copies from before, or even just from the month before, that written record really helps us be able to see what worked, but it also allows us to process what went well and where you can improve, right? I try to take at least 2 hours every month and reflect on what I've done in the past month. I reflect on what worked. I reflect on what didn't work. I reflect on areas of personal improvement, and then I reflect on areas of team improvement. It's easy to not do that each month because there are so many things that really draw on our time. But a former leader with Pampered Chef, and one that was a mentor for me for many years, she talked about reflecting on your meeting after you finished your meeting with your team. So what she was talking about was asking things like, what went well? What part of my meeting was successful? Who stood out for excelling, and who stood out for needing more help? Reflect back on your team meeting about the dynamics that happened. In that team meeting, were you able to clearly identify a leader that you may not have noticed before? And then what segments worked, which ones didn't, and why did they or didn't they? So scheduling that time to reflect on your business and its different aspects is really, really important. And I would urge you to not just clumsily move forward and hope for the best. I would hope that you would use that reflection time to see what you can do better moving forward. So that kind of brings me to the question, though, are you a teachable leader? Is there anybody that feels they're not teachable? Yeah, I think we're all pretty much teachable. There are some people on my team, though, that I have clearly identified as not teachable. And they're ones that you just kind of have to work with, right? I mean, we all have them. We all have the ones that know everything they need to know and don't need us for anything, and they just muddle through it, and that's totally okay. But I think when you're thinking about being teachable, it's definitely related to your attitude. If you walk into any training opportunity with the mindset that there's nothing there that you can be taught, there's nothing there you're going to learn that's new, chances are you're going to be right, because you've predetermined all of that before you ever started. But think about this. Up to 85% of success in life is due to attitude. The other 15% is all that's due to ability. So if you feel like there's a skill set that you need to improve, by all means do it. Because having that attitude of can do and will learn is going to get you farther than not just sitting back and doing nothing. If you've ever walked into a meeting feeling like you don't really want to be there, there's no purpose in your being there, there's nothing new you're going to get from it, then chances are that's exactly what's going to happen. So always come into every training opportunity with an open mind, be willing to learn, but also recognize the fact that everything you hear from every trainer is not going to be something gospel to you. You may not ever put anything into practice from this training alone, let alone all the other ones that you're exposed to. But no matter what, if you're willing to listen, you'll pick up at least one new thing from every single training that you participate in. People with a teachable spirit approach each day as an opportunity for another learning experience. And that is definitely me. I walk into every day saying, okay, what is the universe going to teach me today? Hopefully it's a good lesson. Sometimes it's a tricky one, but you have to be willing to hear it to be able to learn from that experience. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you've reacted, and then when the dust settles and you've had a chance to catch your breath, have you ever wondered if you could have handled that something differently? Or, was there a better way to have said this? Could I have used a different approach? Could I have responded in a different way? Often when I do this, I realize an apology is needed to someone that I might have been hasty or indifferent to. And I can deal with that right away instead of letting it go too long. Or I can correct the way that I answered the question the next time so that I'm not finding myself in that same situation again. So it's another way to seek out the learning on a topic or an area that you want to know more about. So John Maxwell, just so you know, John Maxwell defines teachability as possessing the intentional attitude and behavior to keep learning and growing throughout life. And I truly believe that's what keeps us all young, is when we do continue to grow and learn.
Robin, would you read that one more time, please?
Yep.
Thanks.
John Maxwell defines teachability as possessing the intentional attitude and behavior to keep learning and growing throughout life.
Thank you.
Now, I know that you've probably heard this before, that the secret to any person's success can be found in their daily agenda. Not all the time, not necessarily. People grow not in huge leaps and bounds, but in small daily changes. Think about Miracle on the Hudson, the story of Captain Sully, who was in the takeoff process of a plane and recognized the fact that he was not going to be able to take off as he expected. So his first thought is to find a safe place to land to ensure the least amount of lost life, right? But what he said in an interview with Katie Couric really stuck with me. He said, small daily practices that lead up to knowing what to do in a critical situation is what saved him and saved lives on that day. I'll say that again because I know Julie's going to ask me. Small daily practices that lead up to knowing what to do in critical situations is what saved him that day. So, if you want to be a teachable leader that learns from losses and wins, then make sure that you're learning you're doing something daily so that you are continuing to learn. And recognize the fact that it may not change your life in a day, but it will change the days of your life. And it truly will. So let's talk about teachable moments for a second. So when I say teachable moments, what comes to your mind?
Times when you mess up, times you don't handle things right, mistakes you make, you miss your goals, all those things.
Yep, that's true. Anybody else?
Opportunities that you have to learn that, you know, you could pass by, but you choose to turn them into opportunities to learn.
Excellent. Excellent. One of the things that we sometimes forget as a leader is that our experiences fuel our team. Like, have you ever said to one of the people on your team, "Oh, that's happening to me too"? And they say, "Really? That still happens to you?" The old adage about misery loving company is true in that people feel better about their own struggles when they know that they're not the only one having that struggle, right? So think about something that you've overcome just in the last week or 2 weeks. Melissa, I know you were saying earlier about struggling to make qualifications this month, right? So
Yeah.
what have you done to make sure that you're going to hit that 5,000 this month?
Well, a little backstory before I left at conference. I went to conference just to put a smile on my face because I already had paid and I was planning to just quit. And so, sorry, I get really emotional, but because I don't really want to quit. But I went to conference, I put a smile on my face, and during this session, I think on Friday, I realized like Pamper Chef is what I want. I need it in my life. I love it. And so I started instantly text messaging people that I know were interested or could be. And by Saturday on my way home I already had 5 parties booked for the month of August. And then my goal was 10. And so by like Wednesday or Thursday of that week, I had 10 parties booked, but several flopped, several canceled, Facebook was dumb, all sorts of things. So then, and I have 19 people on my team, so I feel like we should be able to do this. And so I put a plead out to Facebook, and I don't post on my Facebook page very often, and said, I need help. My team is, you know, I can't lose my directorship. I've worked too hard to get this way. And so I had 3 or 4 people offer catalog parties. And I just continued to make contacts until I had 10 parties booked, solid bookings. And then I've taken the weekly focus since conference, and somebody graciously in Director of Success has made that as a Canva. And I have text messaged that to each group, person every Monday morning. And then I did a 15-minute video to my team on Zoom, and I just recorded myself and gave them the truth, you know, and said, this isn't about me. Like, I want you guys to all remain on my team. It's really important. And if we don't come together as a team, I no longer will be your director, and it is what it is. And, you know, and so everybody has submitted. People that haven't submitted in a long time have submitted just the minimum 150. So we've just really worked. And then every day this week, I have a messenger that I put my team on. So I have a group page that's along with my upline, but then I also co-direct with another director in Wyoming, and we're separate downlines or separate uplines. And so I made a messenger just with my people. And I just shared with them, you know, this is where we're at. This is, we need X amount of dollars. And then I said, I will be updating us every night. And so at like 9-10 o'clock at night, I've updated them and said, okay, we need 810, we need this, whatever. And then last night I had, it's at like 870 something for a show, and we're closing it tomorrow morning. And so now we're at like, I think $70 or something like that we need to be green, which I know some of my other downlines are submitting orders, so we'll exceed that. So I just was really intentional with contacts, intentional with reaching out to my team, text messaging them, because they don't communicate by phone, and that's fine. That's just the way it is for now. And just making sure to be intentional. But I have 8 bookings for September as well. So it truly does show that when you stop doing your contacts and you stop working, that your business will die. I could have shut my doors, literally.
So of what Melissa just shared, what did you glean out of that as teachable moments?
Keep doing your contacts.
What else?
Reach out to the team. People like to be part of something bigger than themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true, Julie, because I have a consultant she's really not, she's a casual consultant. And last night she said she only had submitted $33, but I reached out to her thinking, okay, maybe if she could gather another $127 orders, she could be 150. She could be active. She could start her 6-month, clock over. And she said to me, even though I'm a really, really casual consultant, you continue to keep me in the loop and keep me informed. And it was like an aha moment last night. I was like, I don't even think I keep my people informed that well, but I guess I do, so, but I have been texting them every week since conference, and I've never done that prior to. So I've only communicated with the people that are actually showing that they want the business. And I've just, some of those people don't respond to my texts, and that's fine. Yeah. They have the information.
Okay, so what I'm picking up as teachable moments here are things like, I was ready to close my doors, but recognized the fact that people are for me. So in that moment, Melissa, something happened that made you recognize that fact. I mean, and you get emotional when you talk about it, but have you shared that part of this story with your team?
No, because it partially is like, if I didn't have Pamper Chef, I'd probably be more depressed. Like, I need to get out of the house and such. So, I mean, my whys are pretty emotional, and I don't know if I can be that raw. Shoot, you guys are recording me, so I guess I am being that open. But I have not. But my 15-minute video to them was pretty one-on-one, wanting to continue.
The other teachable moment that jumped out.
Someone else is not on mute, by the way, with background.
Thank you. Another teachable moment in what you just shared, Melissa, was the fact that you had no bookings for August. And between Friday and Saturday, you added the shows that you needed on your calendar by making contacts. So the teachable moment in that is something like this to your team. And this may have been in your 15-minute video too. Your teachable moment there is something to the effect that, I looked, it was the middle of July, and I'm looking at my August calendar, and I recognize the fact that it is not where I need it to be. Please mute whoever that is, Julie.
Yeah, got it.
The teachable moment there is, this is what I recognized in myself. And I know what I would have told one of you to do. So I knew that's what I had to do myself. And as a result of what I did, this is what happened. So again, Melissa, I don't know if you included that in your 15-minute video to
No.
them. Okay. So that might be something that you could do today. You could go live in your group and say, if you're sitting looking at your August calendar and recognizing that it didn't turn out the way you wanted it to, and you're also looking at your September calendar and recognizing that it's not where you want it to be, I want you to know that I found myself in that same position exactly a month ago. And here's what I did. And take them through just a basic outline of what you did, Melissa. Did you go to any training courses? Did you take anything on Dash or on PCU that would help you find avenues to reach out to for those bookings? Or give them the exact steps that you did, because that's saying to them a couple of things. A, the pedestal that I have my leader on, she deserves to be there. But even though she's up there, she struggles with the same things that I do. And that's where what you've gone through, that's the teachable moment part of that. And that's the part we forget sometimes. We're so used to just, here's the problem, this is the solution, I have to take action. And we forget that our teams don't always do that same process. So anytime that you can share something that you've done and share the results of your actions, that makes it 1,000 times more valuable in that teachable moment. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Can anybody else tell me another teachable moment out of what Melissa shared?
When she had her first 10 booked and then half of them flopped and went away and didn't work, she went right back at it and booked them again.
Again, exactly. So again, thanks, Julie. That's very easy for you then to go back and say, and you know what? I thought I had a really good August in place. And, like all of you have some shows that flourish and some that flop. And I found myself with some flops this month, and I knew I needed to do something to help our team. And this is what I did. So those are the moments that you can really have a really huge impact on your team. And I just had this conversation with another leader earlier this week, because she is getting ready to hang up her apron. But what she said in her message to her team is, I've not been the type of leader that you deserve. And I'm not saying that you should walk away, Melissa or Julie or, anybody. But what I'm saying is she was very honest with her team. And if you can be honest and point out your own faults, your team's going to be much more accepting of you trying to make a change. Melissa, when you came back from national conference and you've texted your team every week since then, they may have felt that first week like, oh, she's at conference. She's jazzed again. We're going to have our old director back. But as you moved forward, you didn't stop that practice. You continued. You let them see that they're valuable, that they mean something, and that communicating with them is important to you.
And I did say in my little video to them that, I admitted that I probably wasn't the best, but due to health reasons, I just physically and mentally couldn't be the best I could. But working to do better. And I feel like, I feel like I'm tooting my horn. So, but I followed through on
Okay.
what I said, and it just feels good to do that. And I'm not going to lose my director status. So I'm like freaking out. This is like the first time in 2 years, almost a little over 2 years, that I've never been green. So it was a very emotional time to like not even have that jeopardy. I've just always been lucky and had green and worked hard. I don't know if it's luck, it's hard work, but.
Well, and that's, there's another teachable moment for you, Melissa. You can say to your team, I recognize the fact that I needed to do X, Y, and Z to make sure that we stayed a director team. And I made that my focus for August. I was laser focused on making sure we qualified. That was my goal. I set that goal. And then I worked all month to make sure that we kept our director status. And we all have weeks and months where personal things take our time more than business. And if you think about it like a scale, like the old scales of justice, as long as you're even through most of the month, or from the beginning of the month to the end of the month, you're good. Don't feel like it has to be even every single day and every single week. Because if you've got young children that are going back to school or have gone back to school, your focus in one of the previous weeks was probably not as much on business as it was on getting them ready to go, right? So you have to give yourself that permission to balance that scale out when you can. But if you needed the family side to be heavier than the business side, by all means, that's what you do. But you still have to go back and level it off. You can't let it stay that way. Make sense?
I was actually just talking about exactly that with Jean like 2 hours ago, because that's been a lot of my August. My boys aren't little anymore, but I have my older son, we're moving him back to school on Sunday. Our younger one, he's 15. He just got his license, just bought a car that he had saved his money for. And so all these other things that aren't a normal part of life, just all of these big things have been happening. And I feel like I had to choose. That's what I was saying to Gina. I felt like I had to choose between family and work. And I don't like that feeling because I usually can make it work. But yeah, it makes complete sense. And as long as, like you said, we need to look at a month and not just a week or two, because life isn't ever going to balance out completely. But that definitely helped. Kind of just saying, look at the whole month and not just this week and not just 1 week.
Yep. Everybody good so far?
Mm-hmm.
What's our time look like, Julie?
We have 15 minutes.
Okay. All right. Let's see if I can get this done.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. It's not your fault at all. We were late getting started because of my technical difficulty. So, when we think about teachable leaders and teachable moments, I think there's a couple of things that can really help us be successful in our business. And one of the most important parts of them is systems. And I know every time I'm planning a director's retreat, every time I'm planning any kind of a lengthy meeting, I know that I need to have good systems in place. I need to have good focus on what I'm going to do. And I need to take some time and do some research. But I think systems and organization is always a topic that comes up because it's something that we all struggle with. So I know you guys know the 3-2-1, right? 3 contacts a day, 2 parties a month, 1 recruit a month. I would encourage you to add to that 3 contacts a day to make yourself have your next month booked by the 15th of the current month, especially as we get closer to the holidays, because once Thanksgiving is here, if you don't have your December and your January booked, you're not going to have it booked, because people kind of hit Thanksgiving and then they focus on Christmas gifts, other holiday gifts, and then they're on to celebrating and spending time with family. So you need to make sure that you have that done. Are you making enough contacts to have that happen? Are you getting your show schedule where you need it? Are you looking ahead 90 days to see what you have on your personal show schedule? Are you looking ahead those 90 days to see what holidays or season changes are happening? Because, we are in a business for ourselves, so we need to be thinking as the marketing manager of that business. So I try to look at what the stores are doing, although I do have a really hard time with Halloween candy out before the kids go back to school.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you think about that and how they market it, they're marketing well in advance. I have friends that their children already know what they're going to be for Halloween, and it's 2 months away. But, you kind of have to plan ahead. Especially with your marketing. So be thinking about that as you look forward. And know that we're much more effective as leaders when we're proactive rather than being reactive. When we're proactive, we tend to have words come out of our mouths that we aren't going to want to pull back in. So when you're looking at your schedule, make sure you have enough time in your schedule to get all the tasks done. Because when you don't get them done, it kind of makes you feel anxious. And then that anxiety can come out in an area where it doesn't really deserve to come out, right? So I want you to make sure that your schedule's full, so you're not going into that what if we don't go green cycle again. Not just you, Melissa. Trust me, it's not just you. I really think that when you're doing a show, you should be looking for a minimum of 1 booking from every show you do, if not 2. And I think the other thing that can really help us avoid that end of the month agony and anxiety is if we can force ourselves to start our monthly planning, knowing that the last week of August and the first 3 weeks of September are what our September are made of. And the last week of September goes into with the first 3 weeks of October. If you can get yourself into that 1 in 3 mindset, of course, unless there's double points, because then all bets are off. But, when there's not a big consultant incentive, that's how I work my business. The last week of the month is going in the beginning of the next month, and I don't worry about trying to get them closed by the end of the month unless there's a big goal there. So host coaching systems are important. Making sure you have that recruit every month, that's really important. And we've talked about 3, 2, 1, but who can tell me what 1, 2, 3 is? Okay, 1 is the same in both things. So 3, 2, 1, 1 is what? 1
Recruit a month.
Okay, so in the 1, 2, 3, same thing. Personally recruit at least 1 new consultant. Every month, help 2 consultants in your personal team find a recruit. And every month, you should have 3 team members moving toward directorship. That's not saying they're ready to qualify. That's saying they're moving towards. So that could mean just as simple as getting that 1 recruit. Making that number 2 item be finished, and that helps you complete your 3. So to wrap it up, in conclusion, I would say this. Being teachable is about your attitude toward learning and growing. If you stop learning and you stop growing, you're stagnant and you're not going anywhere. And that's where you're going to remain. But being teachable is also about taking the time to be prepared for growth. And it's also about taking time to reflect on your business at least once a week if you can. If not once a week, then once a month, at least do that. But it's also about what you can learn from each day and how you can use that for the betterment of you, for the betterment of your team, and to enhance your days moving forward. Because the more organized you are and the more teachable you are, the more level and less anxious you're going to feel. Make sense?
It does.
All right, questions?
On the 1, 2, 3, it's been a long time since I've heard that, but I have heard that in the past. Having 3 consultants working towards directorship. So that isn't always going to be 3 different people. It's going to be the same 3 people sometimes, and that's okay, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, as long as there's forward movement.
Right.
You know, and if you have 3 people recruit this month and they don't recruit next month, that's okay, as long as those 3 people are doing something with the 3 that they brought in,
mm-hmm.
and they're moving forward. You always want to be looking for forward growth,
Right.
not sitting still.
Right.
Right? Any other questions? Ta-da!
This was great. Thank you, Robin.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So I'll be really eager to hear, and I'll watch for you to post the recording, Julie, and then I'll pose some questions to the group after that as a follow-up.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, so for the next 30 days, what I want you to do is be writing down what new skills you're putting in your she shed. And then tell me how that skill is going to help you and how that skill is going to help your team. Okay?
Got it. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye, everybody.